Once upon a time, if you felt you were unfairly dismissed by your employer, you would have to go to court and incur the risk of losing a lot of money if you lost the case. That's no longer the position. There's now a fairly simplified procedure, which I'll outline in a minute, whereby you can go to an organisation called the Workplace Relations Commission. Now, you must, if you establish the fact, if you just prove that you were actually sacked, and usually that's easy enough to prove, the onus will then be on the employer to prove that the sacking was fair. There are certain situations in which you're sacked, or certain grounds on which you might be sacked, which give you an automatic case. You don't have to prove very much anything else. They would be things like, membership, if you're sacked because of membership of a trade union, or because of your religious or political opinions, or because of your sexual orientation, the fact that you're pregnant, the fact that you're availing of your legal rights to leave, to holidays, etc. Things like, if you make a protected disclosure complaint against your employer, they're automatic grounds. However, of course, in a situation where the employer can show that you're simply not up to the job, you won't be successful, needless to say. Or if your conduct is somewhat, if your conduct is such that the employer can't put up with you. I mean, if your conduct is outlandish, and it has to be pretty outlandish, I guess, you wouldn't have a successful case. Now, of course, there'll also be a question of redundancy. If you're legitimately made redundant, there's no point in looking for unfair dismissal. Now, the procedure, if you're actually sacked unfairly, is you can go to the Workplace Relations Commission. Usually, you can do this online, incidentally, and there will be details of how to contact the Workplace Relations Commission at the end of this presentation. You must make the application within 6 months of dismissal, and you must have been employed for 12 months or more to justify bringing the case before the Workplace Relations Commission. But there are exceptions to that. For example, if your complaint relates to your trade union membership, that you're sacked because of your trade union membership, or because you're pregnant, or because you're pursuing your legal rights to holidays, etc., or because you make a protected disclosure, you don't have to be employed for 12 months. But in any case, if somebody is unfairly sacked, and not for any one of those reasons, and they have been employed for less than 12 months, they have an alternative. They can bring a case. They can bring a case for what's called discriminatory dismissal. And there are 9 grounds on which you can bring a case for discriminatory dismissal. They would be, the usual things: your gender. If you're sacked because of your gender, because of your civil status, because of your family status, because of your age, or because of the fact that you have a disability, or your religion, race, sexual orientation, or because you happen to be a member of the travelling community. In those cases, you have a separate action for, as I've said, discriminatory dismissal. Now, again, except for constructive dismissal, where you actually have to leave the job, you must prove that you were dismissed. But this is generally speaking easy to do. Now, what are the remedies you can expect if you go to the Workplace Relations Commission? Well, there's a number of alternatives. You can be either re-engaged or reinstated in your job. If you're reinstated, it means that you never legally lost your employment, so you'll be entitled to back pay from the time you were dismissed, from the time you ceased to get paid. Re-engagement would be somewhat different. You mightn't have as strong a case, or there might be some adverse conduct on your part, etc. Re-engagement would be where you're taken back from a certain date to be set by the Workplace Relations Commission, but you wouldn't be entitled to any back money. Now, the alternative to re-engagement or reinstatement, and this is what's usually given, is compensation. You can get compensation. The usual maximum of compensation is 2 years. 2 years full pay. Except in where you're sacked because you make a protected disclosure. In that case, compensation can be up to 5 years full pay. It's a very complex area. There's other things come into play, like fixed term contracts. What happens in the event of a fixed term contract? If an employee gets a fixed term contract and the employer makes it absolutely clear that it's for a certain term and it ends on a certain date, etc., well, that would obviously preclude you bringing the case for unfair dismissal. So if you have any issues or any queries in any of those matters, please feel free either to get in touch directly with the Workplace Relations Commission, or if you feel I can be of assistance to you, feel free to contact me.